Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Student of the Game. I am Kyle Nash, the Student of the Game. And listen, if you're here, chances are you like talking sport. We're glad you're here to do it with us tonight, of course. Welcome in. And listen, a lot of goings on. We'll be talking a little bit of college football with my guy, Mikey, the Bern, yay. A little bit of follow up here. Of course, I did not make it to the Huddle Up podcast on Tuesday night, but hey, listen, I'll be weighing into a few things there too. Part of the reason that Mikey Bern's here, Heisman Trophy stuff and all that other things in football playoffs, and of course NFL picks eventually as well. But let me go ahead and get into this. For all the things that I get criticized for, right, wrong, indifferent, or otherwise, now you see full circle what I've been trying to show you people from moment one. The Atlanta Falcons have announced that they're going to start Michael Penix at quarterback. Now, the main reason we're here is because they started to have issues offensively with Kirko changed himself, a.k.a. Kirk Cousins. And listen, I screwed up on one particular thing. Well, no, I didn't. I can't say I screwed up. Where I screwed up is saying that I thought Michael Penix would start sooner than this. That's what I'm getting at. I just didn't call it late enough in the season. Part of the reason I have the Falcons, or listen, the fraud calls at this point, if you believed my 11-game prediction for Atlanta, well, that's no more. I fell into the trap again. Can the Falcons still technically make the playoffs? Yes. Do they need help from the Bucs to do so? Absolutely. We're talking about a team in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that has somehow beaten both the Lions and the Eagles. I think I'd have to look. But yes, beating high-level teams that they shouldn't. Kind of a thing that the Steelers have been doing. Or not the Steelers, sorry, the Buccaneers. I mentioned the Steelers because they got the injuries with the receivers in that Steelers game and whatever. But the Buccaneers have been beating teams that they shouldn't or you didn't expect. It's really hard to call it teams that they shouldn't beat because, let's be honest, the Buccaneers have outperformed, and a lot of that has to do with Baker Mayfield, and I understand why Baker Mayfield might be getting MVP votes. I wouldn't, but I understand, right? I wouldn't, but I understand. Kind of like, stuff involving CEOs in the news lately. Anyways, but Michael Penix is starting in Atlanta, which means one of two things is true. Either you wasted the opportunity to have resources for Michael Penix, or you got Kirk Cousins wrong. I guess the argument for that would technically be both, right? In no universe at this point, oh, look, well, they have the security blanket. But think of all the money you threw at Cousins, Kirk O'Change, Perk Thuggins, Kirk Coupons, whatever the hell we're naming him this week, okay? That could have gone to maybe, and hear me out, Atlanta, defensive players. I know! You haven't known what that is since Vic Beasley disappeared off the face of the planet, reappeared with the Vegas Vipers, and was a mediocre player in the then XFL, right? But that is an advantage. Think of that adventure. Suddenly, holy smokes, defense winning championships and you having an offense that you might get with Michael Penix, and I will grant you, he could come out Sunday and be a stinker. But at least by this point, he would be developing and maybe could win a pedestrian NFC South. I'll grant you, it's not AFC South bad, but it's pretty damn sad. Now, granted, perhaps there wouldn't be as much tragedy as Kansas City Chiefs fans must be feeling with the injury to Patrick Mahomes II with the ankle rather. But listen, at this juncture, man, don't rule out Kermit the Frog Jesus. Okay, he does crazy things, and for all the Kansas City fatigue that's out there, the Murphy's Law of anything that can go wrong will, and him still getting to the Super Bowl somehow to make that story happen, kind of like he did last year in that last Super Bowl he won. Listen, I'm not prepared to rule it out. Do I think the Chiefs should play him? Probably not, but I'm not there at the facility. I don't know what his status is. I don't know how far along he is or any of that. And what is it? They got Carson Wentz there now? I'll put it this way. This isn't like in the past where you could plug and play a quarterback like when they did it with Chad Henne in that playoff game, and he'll just deliver in that environment, in that roster. They don't have that anymore. So I get the defense for playing him if you're worried about seeding. But I don't know. Maybe do it on the road. Let him get healthy. And then if they make the playoff run on the road and deliver in a way that a certain non-GOAT, alleged GOAT, Thomas Edward Patrick Beaver Brady did, then in that case, well, maybe he's done something else a little bit more impressive. But enough of that silliness. Let me go in and bring in the guy who I know, love, and adore, not only for his great football mind, but let's just say he knows his stats. He's not necessarily held slave to them. I got to bring him in and ask, is that Spider-Man in the background there, Mikey the Bern Bernier?
Yeah, it's Jackson Spider-Man chair.
You know what? That Bell to Jackson Spider-Man chair. There you go. Hell yeah, man. Welcome in, brother. How you doing?
We're good, man. We're good. I enjoyed the intro monologue representing Perk Thuggins or Kirko Chains or Swag Surf USA. Any of those different monikers that he's used this year. And you bring up the fact of, did they get it wrong / were they worried about the Michael Penix thing? The reality of the situation is this. I felt like they had to go get a veteran. Maybe a guy like Sam Darnold would have made a little bit more sense, even though Sam Darnold's having a great
that's
season.
Hindsight 2020 there. There's no world where anybody felt good.
No, not at all. No. No, but I was saying the fall off of Kirk Coupins, Perk Thuggins came a lot faster than any of us really thought it was going to happen. I mean, I know he was coming off the Achilles injury, and you're like,
I thought Penix was going to be in by like week 11.
I know, me and you had that conversation, and
right.
The fact of the matter is this: he probably should have been in by week 11 the way Kirk's played the last couple weeks.
So we're right to that extent.
So, I mean, at this point, I think it's more of a thought process. And with the money and building the defense, it's not even just building the defense at that point. It's okay. You could have spent that money on a wide receiver. If you're not paying Kirk Cousins next year to be the backup for Michael Penix, or the dead money that's going to ensue whenever you inevitably let him go, I don't know. There's a wide receiver that's going to be potentially leaving Cincinnati that would be an explosive piece to add to that offense to make them even better, to maybe open the field for Kyle Pitts or Bijan Robinson. But you may have played yourself out of that.
I see the tea that you're spilling there, Mikey the Bern Bernier. See what I did there? Anyway. No, the reason I don't mention wide receivers, at some point that becomes an embarrassment of riches on that offense, right? I feel I went defense. If you wanted to stay on the offensive side, Bern, especially with somebody who's going to be a rookie quarterback, I don't know, bring in some protection. Historically bad are both the defense and the offensive line simultaneously for the Atlanta Falcons. And I get it. They've had a few individual members of the line that are good, but like going back to the first permutation of this show in the 2000s, right, where I was still doing that thing with, of course, the local hero, Chris Rankin, Stephen Weasel Hurley, and that group back when the Falcons O-line was so injured once, they're throwing tight ends at the positions on the tackle spot just to fill the goddamn roster. Like, that's what I mean. They didn't need another receiver or another ball carrier. Kyle Pitts is finally doing things. Bijan Robinson, amazing. So, like,
they actually figured out how to use Darnell Mooney.
I mean,
something that Chicago couldn't do for like 4 years.
Well, I listen.
That's another conversation.
You're picking up what I'm putting down. The punchline you delivered there is a strong one, and I think we'll get into more NFL later. We do picks later on in the show. I don't think we're breaking any ground there per se. Excuse me. So I'll say this, and I'll put it this way: I have no idea how much slander I got on the Huddle Up podcast on Tuesday, but I'm sure there was some. As the lone person who seems to think that Deion Sanders isn't the reason that Travis Hunter won the Heisman. Or at least as I was accused of by at least one person on Twitter and other places this past weekend, right? So
we didn't even talk about the Heisman yesterday, for the record.
Oh, I'm amazed by that.
Did not get brought up at all.
Well, then we're bringing it up now. I was called by at least one person what is it?
You're a Deion lover?
A Deion lover, which for say, if you don't love Deion Sanders, you're probably the problem. But we'll leave that alone. This isn't like JJ Watt level man crush stuff here. That's not what I mean. I think the conversation that's been had surrounding Travis Hunter is that he's doing anything other than amazing stuff whenever he touches the football. And I don't think it's fair also to say that Ashton Jeanty, I keep wanting to call him Alshon Jeanty. I have no idea why. I did that on the Duval dive earlier tonight. It doesn't make it, wait, better bell. It doesn't make any damn sense. Ashton Jeanty. Don't worry, I'll get it right eventually. You're going to get plenty of Jeanty over the offseason talking about where he's going to get drafted because that dude is going to be a pro. I can even make the argument that there is a path to success where he is a better pro or a longer lasting pro than Travis Hunter, but we'll table that.
Yes.
I'm not mad at people that think Jeanty should have gotten votes, but the implication that Jeanty is robbed is tall for me. The Biletnikoff Award winner who locks down guys in his space. I shouldn't say lockdown. I don't think he's that. He was a finalist for I think it's the Thorpe Award. I forget the one for DBs. Mm-hmm. You won the Biletnikoff. You're the Thorpe Award finalist. Mm-hmm. And oh, by the way, you return kicks like a mad mother. I don't see how there's any other way you do it. Alshon Jeanty, and I think we talked about this on Twitter, Alshon Jeanty in another year wins the Heisman. I don't think there's a question. By the way, credit to the committee for even paying attention to a G5 guy, right? Like, I think what we're having, and I knew we were going to get into the Academy Award winner analogy here. You're nodding your head. You see, I think you already know where I'm going. Alshon Jeanty is Brokeback Mountain. No, the movie, not the situation. Relax, people. Okay, we're not getting controversial here. But there was a lot of outcry when Brokeback Mountain did not win Best Picture. What people, and because the subject matter, they assumed that certain things prevented it from winning. Instead of saying, hey guys, despite all of that potential bias, it was nominated. And if you were to see the votes, damn near won. This is where I think that analogy holds. In another year, maybe Brokeback Mountain / Alshon Jeanty wins. Unfortunately, there was another all-time great epic, and I forget what won over Brokeback Mountain, but let's pretend that, it was a Lord of the Rings movie or something, that it was competing against. You weren't beating it. You weren't. So that's kind of where I think it is. Blame the timing is what I would say if you're going to blame anything. I know you are an Ashton Jeanty advocate, and I knew you would be perfectly designed to provide the counter for this. Take it. Where am I wrong?
Okay, so there's a few pieces that I think, and I said this to you privately off of Twitter. The Heisman Trophy itself, I don't know if it's the thing that I'm more upset that Travis Hunter won. I think the thing I'm more upset about was him winning the Wide Receiver of the Year award when there's a guy who had the Triple Crown at that position. But I understand he played at San Jose State. It's a Group of 4 school, Group of 5 school. I get it. Probably not going to get the love of a national award like that. Look at the Tight End of the Year award that was won by the guy from Penn State when the guy from Bowling Green had every fucking statistical I dropped the F-bomb. I should have done that. It's on me.
Here, you could pay your penance by this. Let me interrupt you and ask this question. Let's say that Hunter won the Thorpe Award, but was only a finalist for the Biletnikoff. Would that sit better with you?
I would say yes.
Okay, I'm there too.
Because I personally feel that if you're telling me that Travis Hunter is the best corner in college football and is also a top 5 wide receiver, I think I'm saying, okay, I can believe that. I can believe that he's the best corner in college football. I can't believe that he's the best wide receiver in college football when there's guys that have had statistically better seasons than him. I'm going based solely off of statistics, and I understand that they play in a weaker conference against weaker teams, against teams that may not be scheming and may not have the manpower to scheme against guys that can go off in that regard. And that's something that you have to take into account for it, and that's right. Okay. But we've talked and we've joked, especially on the Huddle Up show, that the Big 12 is death, taxes, and the over.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when Travis Hunter's on the field, it's death, taxes, and throw to anyone that isn't Travis Hunter.
I mean, that's the thing about it. He didn't get the Thorpe Award because he doesn't have stats. The best corners don't have effing stats because they're avoiding him. And they were able to understand that with Sauce Gardner. They forgot it with Hunter. Doesn't make any damn sense, Bern, but I digress. Continue.
Correct. And I think that's the thing that you have to think about here. And, the great corners, especially in the National Football League, their statistics aren't that great. You look at Sauce Gardner, like, he's got 2 picks. Why? I don't know, because they've only thrown against him 14 times in 7 games or something.
Because they didn't get past, I double dare you. That's why there's only 2.
We don't want to go over there. We want to go over here instead. So it's one of those things where you have to take that into account. And that's the thing. If you're telling me he's the best corner in college football and a top 5 wide receiver, I look at you and I go, so you're telling me he did better than Charles Woodson when he won it as a 2-way player at the University of Michigan.
By the way, excellent returner as well.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. A lot of people are like, oh, Woodson played both sides of the ball. No, Woodson played elite corner and fantastic returner and played some offensive snaps. Travis Hunter, elite corner, good to great returner, even better wide receiver than Charles Woodson was. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. I said this to you. I've said this to the guys on the show. I've said this to anyone that'll listen. Ashton Jeanty probably breaks Barry Sanders' record if he doesn't sit out second halves against Portland State. If he doesn't sit out second halves against a couple of teams in the Mountain West play. But that's a decision that the coaching staff made because they felt that Ashton Jeanty would get them to the position that they're in right now, which is no matter what happens this weekend, they are one of the last 8 teams and one of the only 8 teams that have a shot at winning the national championship. And at the end of the day, I don't think they're in that predicament without Ashton Jeanty. So at that point, I think I look at it from the standpoint of, to me, the Heisman feels like the most valuable player. You're telling me that the conversation is Josh Allen versus Saquon Barkley in the NFL right now. And I sit here and I tell you that if I had to vote today, I would probably vote Josh Allen. And it's not anything against Saquon Barkley. It's solely because if Josh Allen wasn't a member of the Buffalo Bills, that's probably a 5-win team.
Moreover, Saquon doesn't throw the ball in addition to running it.
Correct. Is he an absolute change of pace? Absolutely. I will never discredit what Saquon Barkley does when he has the football. Electric, game changer, can hit the home run from anywhere on the field. Absolute unit. It's a real shame. It's a real shame that Giants. It's a real shame that the Giants just let him walk. I mean,
that's what I was saying. The only people that would disrespect Saquon Barkley is the damn Giants front office. Continue.
Yeah. So I mean, so I look at it from that regard. I think, like we said, I think if Jeanty does this last year, I think if he does it next year, I don't think that this is a conversation. I think he almost runs away with it. No pun intended. But he is an absolute unit, and I think when I look at what he did on the field, I from a statistical standpoint, I tell myself that any person that breaks a record has to put themselves in the conversation. And this is the first time that a guy from the group of 5 really put himself on the doorstep of winning the Heisman Trophy. Yeah. And a lot of people on the internet have said, oh man, the group of 5, you're never going to win the awards because you don't play anybody. The Noah Songs of the world didn't play anybody at San Jose State. I can't pronounce the kid's name from Bowling Green. I'd make it terrible. So, he's never going to win it because he's the best tight end at Bowling Green. I mean, at the end of the day, I think we're in a spot now where 5 years ago, I don't think we would have ever had a G5 guy finish in the top 3 of the Heisman. Now we had a guy who lost by like 185 points in the closest race the Heisman's seen in probably 10 years.
And there's a number of other things that fall into play here too. Like for one, I know people will laugh at it now. I had Cam Rising, but let's not act like were he healthy, he continued on the pace he started. To your point, the death taxes and the over of the Big 12, especially finishing your season with UCF. You're going to try to tell me that Cam Rising wouldn't put up numbers and put himself into the conversation? Maybe he doesn't win it. Cool. If he loses to Travis Hunter and Alshon Jenti, if he's number 3 ahead of Dylan Gabriel, I'm down. But
correct.
You know,
he has an argument. Jackson Dart, if he played a little bit better down the stretch for Ole Miss, probably puts himself in the conversation.
Yeah.
You know, he's someone that I know a couple people mentioned in the preview of the season. You know, and that's the thing. It's one of those where it's now, to me, if you're in the group of 5, and I think this is where the college football playoff is a good thing for the group of 5, and this is kind of something that no one's really thought about, at least not that I've seen. Everything I've seen is, oh man, this isn't good. They're just going to get boat raced by whoever they play in the first round, XYZ. But here's the thing. There's a lot more eyes on the group of 5 if you're going to put one of them in the college football playoffs. And if one of those teams, whether it's the Tulanes of the world, whether it's the JMUs, whether it's the Boise States, the Coastal Carolinas, whoever it is, whomever the team is, if that team,
the UCFs over Auburn in 2017.
Correct. If those teams have by far players that are doing things that deserve the credit that they deserve, the national media will have to look at them because they're going to be a playoff team. And there's no member of the national media that wants to sit here on an episode of Sports Center or First Take or any other of the other shows that you watch, The Herd, Joel Klatt, any of those shows that you watch. Yeah. Any of those shows that you want to watch, any of those shows you want to listen to, your podcast, none of those guys want to come into that conversation uneducated. So they're going to watch. And then you're going to look at this guy's stat line, and you're going to, and Genti's the perfect example. You're going to go, he ran for how much against the number 1 team in the nation? And then he ran for that much against other good like, now you're going to look at it and you go, huh, maybe this kid is someone we need to have a conversation about. Now this is someone that we maybe need to vote for the high. Like, the group of 5 now, I think, is more in play for bigger awards than they ever have been because of the playoff. Because they're guaranteed a team to get it.
Transfer portal, NIL, big part of this as well. I mean, just what you're seeing, you're saying it's the playoff. I'm saying that helps. What I think you're demonstrating in reality is something far bigger than you're giving credit. I think this is another symptom of the parity we're seeing in college football, right? Just at the end of the day, because at some point, we're hearing about these stories about players getting $1 million and all this, or programs literally investing $1 billion. There's stuff that's out of control. I think, what was it? Texas Tech. I don't quote me. I forget the dang, but it's out of control. And at some point, they're going to invest something and people are going to get cheesed when they come out with, I don't know, I'll pick a number, 4 wins. It's not like that's something I came up with as an example as somebody who writes for the Black and Gold Banneret. But at some point, you're going to invest and throw a lot of money at player or players, and people are getting unhappy, and then they're going to stop investing, and then things are going to turn around, and the bubble will burst. That will happen at some point. The market will correct itself. Something capitalism. But in the meantime, when it does fail, and other players are leaving and moving about, they're going to find their opportunities. Whether it's Parker Navarro. See, I'm staying with UCF to keep the analogy complete, who I'm going to be covering this weekend at the Cure Bowl, playing for as he plays for Ohio, battling Jacksonville State, Fans First Sports Network, or any of the other number of, what is it? Mikey Keene is actually talking about Michigan, I'm reading now. And then, it just came out. It was crazy. And DJ Mack at Old Dominion leaving UCF, just all these other things that are happening. What? Your boy, Tommy Castellanos at FSU, as Mikey B face palms.
DJ Uli Ungalale Jr.
Well, hold on. Okay, but I can't say no. That being said, just all that movement, at some point, somebody's going to do a Joey Bern again and go from one school to another and have a great year. Maybe not the best statistical offensive season of all time for a national championship with Ed Ogeron, go Tigers. But
so
that's there.
Maybe it's Quinn Ewers whenever he decides that he doesn't want to play professional football and then leaves Texas because he won't keep his starting job over Arch Manning for another year.
I don't want your life.
Yeah, because he ain't playing football at Austin after this playoff run, no matter what happens. I think they've made the decision internally that Arch Manning will be the starter there next season, and I think if Quinn wants to come back, I think he has to go elsewhere, and maybe it's back to the Big 12, and maybe it's to a team who needs a piece to potentially put themselves in the running to replace a Cam Rising.
Interesting. So you think the Longhorns long term are planning for Manning? Fascinating. You like how I got that in there?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's probably another joke in there that I'm talking about getting things in there, but let's hold off on that. I'm going to do something I didn't necessarily prepare you for, Mikey B, but I'll put it this way. If I feel like if I don't do this, I'm not doing justice. And any opportunity to throw a little bit of magic and love the direction of the Huddle Up podcast, I am here for. And you know what? Since these are technically picks, let me throw up the pick music here. Let me get that in here too. And see, this is how I didn't plan this. I'm doing this on the fly, quite literally. Here. Sure, Bern.
Well, it was fascinating. After we talked the preview, we talked about which coaches we felt had the most pressure in round one of the playoffs. Obviously, number one is the spray painted hair. Ryan Day. Second up was James Franklin, and I think that this is a spot where all I've heard is give Penn State a night game. Give Penn State a night game. Day game, night game don't matter. I don't know that they have the explosive enough offense to keep up with SMU. I think SMU is going to go out and just try to be fast. It's going to be cold. You know how to stay warm? By running fast. Give me the Stangs to eliminate Penn State and to put James Franklin on the throne of the Inferno.
The unemployment line is probably the simpler version. Oh, dang, you picked the Stangs. Listen, Bern, you have a history of being brave and doing it right when you do so. I'm still not brave enough to be this guy. I want to pick the American Athletic Conference to not only prove the ACC inferior as they did this season, but also to expose the Big Ten and in particular Penn State for the frauds that some of those teams are. I would love nothing more. That's right, Bern. I am going to be cheering harder this weekend for an ACC school that I have in a long damn time. Technically, it's an American school. It is what it is. Deal with it, SMU fans. That's where you're at in my mind. Not brave enough to pick it. I have Penn State.
Are you okay, sir?
I know. It's who kidnapped me, right? I picked the Irish and I picked the ACC team back to back. What the F?
Blink twice if you're in danger.
I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Look out the window and see if the security van is outside.
No, Ernest isn't driving that far up here.
That's also factual.
Shouts to EJ Christian. Here's one that may get me back on track. The Clemson Tigers do battle with the Texas Longhorns there in Austin. Bern, who you got?
Oh God. I said this on the show, and I here's my thought process with the game. This is a real test for Sarkisian because of how bad he looked in overtime against Georgia. They put Arch Manning out there on the first play. He takes the snap, just 8-9 yards, no issue. Then for some reason he just decides to run 4 verticals on the next 3 plays. For some reason, I didn't understand the play calling. For a guy who's a great offensive mind, the way that he is, what are we doing? Like, I don't know if this is me now believing in Arch Manning being the better option than Quinn Ewers, or they need to run a package for both of those guys and get both of them on the field because of the ability that Arch has when running the football. The line itself, and I know we're not picking the line here, I took Clemson plus the points. I think Texas
keep it within 12. Right?
I do. I think Texas inevitably escapes with a win. But I do think that Dabo finds a way to keep this game close.
Yeah, you mentioned all these things that could be impacting your decision. In your case, and knowing you the way I know you, and the way you love things that you love and dislike things the way you dislike them, I really think the thing driving your decision overall is bleep Dabo. For me, it's bleep the ACC. The SEC is the team that reigns supreme. I just don't see them beating the Longhorns. I'm mad at you for picking the points, but I think the Longhorns will win the game and at least get one game in the playoff. Now, will they go further? Separate conversation.
All right.
I'd say, yeah, right. They're already dropping news about Cat Williams talking about why he was blackballed and stuff. It's just very confusing. Anyways, we are Marshall. Wait, what? We're not talking G5 anymore, but at least not until next week, or a couple weeks, I should say. The Tennessee Volunteers and the Ohio State Buckeyes, certainly the most, anticipated game. This is fascinating to me, man. Go ahead and tell me what you got.
Would you say that this game has the most hype-ul?
Shoot, I feel like I gave you that one weeks ago, but go ahead.
I would like to volunteer to take out Ryan Day. On the show, I took the Tennessee Volunteers plus the points. I took the Tennessee Volunteers outright. I do think that Tennessee finds a way to win this game. I hear a lot of people coming out going, it's a night game. They play in a stadium on the road called Death Valley. Cool story, bro. It's going to be cold. It snows more in Tennessee than it does Ohio, I think. They don't care about cold. The fact of the matter is this. When I look at the offensive side of the football, I think the wide receiver room at Ohio State is probably the superior out of the two teams. But the quarterback room, I feel like, give the edge to the Tennessee Volunteers. And I think it's more, I just don't love what Ryan Day has done the last couple of weeks with the offensive game plan. It feels very flat. It doesn't feel very enthralled. I mean, go back a couple of weeks when they lost to Michigan. That offense just didn't look good at all.
Well, I'll push back with this on the Michigan thing. And what we've heard a lot of in the speculation, and by the way, I buy it, but I feel like there was either a certain element of urgency or of, shall we say, hubris, depending on which theory you believe more. But something compelled Ryan Day to run the football, kind of like the Baltimore Ravens somehow felt compelled to throw the football against the Chiefs in the playoffs last year. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that that's a true, what's his word, sampling of Ryan Day. What I do think is similar is what the game looked like against Oregon. So I don't know if that helps you at all, but go ahead.
I mean, it does, but this is one of those things where, when you look at what Ohio State's done this season, the loss to Oregon on the road, and this is one of those things. Will Howard, he's put up good numbers in what we'd like to call a 3-team conference. Maybe 4 if you want to get fancy and put Indiana in there, but you're a bolder person than I am.
I would call it a 2-team conference, but let's not go off on this tangent.
2.5 men.
That's right. It fits that one of them is Charlie Sheen and will leave at the drop of a hat, right? Yes, that's a Dylan Gabriel reference. Moving on.
You're welcome. So that being said, Tennessee, they're battle tested.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they've played in the SEC. Argumentalist points aside, we do say it's the best conference in college football. Not as good as SEC conferences of past, but still the best conference in football. That's where I will leave that. And I think the battle testedness of Tennessee here is what will inevitably win the day. I think that
I don't even know if you meant to do that, but that was smooth, you.
Yeah. So that's where I go there. I think Tennessee wins, and I think we see a conversation with some with the AD and some other coaches and maybe Ryan Day at the north end zone, where you just kind of see potentially that it isn't his hair actually being spray painted on, that it's a toupee, and that he's forced to leave it on the field as he is terminated by the Ohio State Buckeyes.
This would be better. Wait, This doesn't, darn it. If that happened to be the Rose Bowl, it would be appropriate to say that he was terminated. But
yes, correct. That'd be even better.
Unfortunately, still home games at this. Well, I shouldn't say unfortunately. I get they earn the right to play at this Valley. It's fine. Okay.
So if they win this week and then they get rolled by Oregon in the Rose Bowl, then we can pull the Terminator joke.
Noted. Yeah. That being said, I'm with you. Here's the thing. This is going to be a high-flying game. I feel like this is going to be a high-scoring game. The play, if the over-under is still 45 and a half, give me the damn over all day. You'll pardon the expression. I have no idea why this game this weekend has the lowest over-under. Somebody's screwing up or somebody's paying way too much damn attention to the Michigan game, as I kind of insinuated to you before, right? Honestly, I've said my piece about Josh Heupel, and he's proven me wrong time again. God bless him. His quarterback, whose name I constantly mispronounce, and I'm not going to swing and miss here on tonight. I thought he was good playing as a freshman for the few snaps he did in the Citrus Bowl last year. I dug that. And he continued to kind of build on that. He had some ups and downs, of course, as any young quarterback does, who's becoming the full-time starter, but fine. I think they run the ball relatively well and do an excellent balance, and they have a decent pass rush. All the things that could give Ohio State fits, even more than Oregon did. Nonetheless, like I said, I still see a shootout. I still see the over, and I'm with you. I think Tennessee wins outright. I definitely don't understand a touchdown and a half to Ohio State. That does not make a damn bit of sense to me, but what do I know? I'm just a student.
It's really wild that all of these games have over a touchdown spread. Like there's not all of them. I mean, obviously the SMU Penn State, you're looking at that. You're looking at a American school versus Big Ten. The Vegas is going to get that one horrifically wrong.
Yeah,
enjoy that one, guys. But you got an SEC team that's battle tested in Tennessee, and you're giving them 7.5. I don't care if this game was played in Ryan Day's backyard. I don't know that I give Ohio State 7.5 the way that they've looked at points this year. I mean, I get it. 2 losses, one of them to Oregon by a point, the other one a huge rivalry game that Ryan Day has never won. Maybe that's an issue. Maybe we're calling Mayday. But I look at it from this, like, they also just didn't look good against certain teams in the Big Ten this year.
Mm-hmm.
Letting teams stay in games that they shouldn't have. Like, if there's a team where you're just like,
they almost got beat by Wisconsin, right? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm pretty sure that if you look at their, I'll bring the schedule up while we're literally talking about them. I mean, your out of conference games, cool. You routed Akron, you routed Western Kentucky, you beat Nebraska by 4. You beat.
Wait, are you trying to say that beating Akron means zip?
Correct. I mean, you only beat Nebraska by 4. You only beat Penn State by 7. The Indiana game, sure, it blows up to 23, but there was late scores in that game.
Yeah.
I mean, 49-14 over Marshall.
Didn't they struggle to Perdon't, or am I thinking somebody else?
No, they blew Perdon't out. 45.
Oh wait, that might be Notre Dame. I'm thinking of. Never mind. That wasn't meant to be a shot at anybody who might think so. I got mixed up.
And I mean, honestly, even the game against Northwestern, on paper, cool. You beat them 31-7. You scored 21 points in the second, 10 in the third, and you didn't score again. You didn't score in the first quarter. You didn't score in the fourth. I mean, against a 4-6 Northwestern team that you probably could have blown that thing wide open if you really wanted to, and this is something that the college football playoffs are going to prove in the next couple of years. Style points are going to start mattering.
They already kind of do.
And this is one of those things where this year is the perfect example. If you're one of those teams that's sitting at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, you may not be able to pull your offense midway through the third quarter up 21-0. You might want to leave them out there and get to.
You need to do like Notre Dame and abuse the G5 if you're going to play them, and that's not a slight. That's the only thing you could do if your schedule sucks.
Correct. And that's the thing. And we looked last night on the show at Indiana's schedule for next year.
Ass.
They play 2 tough games. Oregon.
Oh, that's one more than this year.
Sorry. Yeah, I think it's Oregon. They don't play Ohio State or Michigan next year.
Mm-hmm.
They may play Penn State.
Well, and there's no guarantee Oregon's going to be good because
Correct. That's what I'm saying.
Dylan Gabriel finally, retires. I say retires because that's what you say of mercenaries when they stop putting out contracts.
Yeah. Next year, hold on. I'm looking up their schedule for next year because I wanted your opinion on it actually, and the fact that we're on the show tonight, it works because I looked this up yesterday. I read it off to the guys, and I'll read it off to you, and then I'll get your reaction. So, August 30th, they open the season home against Old Dominion. Then they play Kennesaw State, Indiana State, Illinois, at Iowa. Off at Oregon, Michigan State, UCLA, at Maryland, at Penn State, Wisconsin at home, off, and then on the road at Purdue.
The only good news, Mikey the Bern Bernier, is at some point Penn State and Indiana might cancel somebody out.
I was going to say, honestly, depending on how the transfer portal works out, their only real top 10 game could be on the road at Penn State. Because we're not guaranteed that Oregon is going to be able to retool to put themselves in this run that they're in right now. And that's no discredit to Dan Lanning and those guys.
I was going to say, this is a test for Lanning. Let's see if he comes back.
Correct. And that's one of those other things that you have to have the conversation of. Is Dan Lanning also on his way somewhere else when Dylan Gabriel leaves? But I look at it from the standpoint where, as much as that was the conversation when we talked about pressure. I thought Singetti had a lot of pressure on him because of him calling out Notre Dame, and giving them the bulletin board material. And the other guys were like, "Is it really though?" Because Indiana's not supposed to be there. And I was like, if Indiana's not supposed to be there, they're playing with house money. They really need to not give other people bulletin board material. They really just need to go handle their business.
I'll say this: they were stupid. Or I shouldn't say they were. That was stupid to call out Notre Dame. He's throwing stones at somebody who deserves it. You've heard me talk about it on the Huddle Up podcast, and even eventually get basically every member of the panel to capitulate that I'm right about their schedule, even though they want to argue with me about it for 2 hours, right? But the punchline being this: shouts to my dude Matt Mule Heisman. You're throwing the stones out of your glass house,
correct?
Right? And the only advantage you truly have in the preseason polls, they may not get back. That's about the only way I feel like we'll see that stop.
And we talked about it on last week's show, me and you, and we were kind of the driving force behind all right, this preseason ranking stuff is kind of making this a lot harder than it really needs to be. Because
we'll give Jim his credit too. He's said it for years himself.
Yeah. Correct. No, absolutely. Jim was the driving force of preseason rankings are stupid. Me and you, I think, are the ones that drove the bus through the wall when we were like, okay, we literally have teams that were on the cusp or are playoff teams because they started the season at 8, got all the way up to like 4, and didn't lose until the middle of November. Looking at you, Penn State.
Because they refused to punish them as you or I would have.
Mm-hmm. So. I mean, Miami is another perfect example. Started the season in the top 15, worked their way up playing a bad ACC schedule, a bad out-of-conference schedule. Florida makes it look better on paper because they finished the year as well as they did, but that Florida team was not good whenever Miami played them.
Not great, Bob.
That team couldn't find their way out of a wet paper bag when they played the University of Miami. They figured it out the back half of the year. Credit to the coaching staff there. But that's another conversation. That Miami team got all the way up to 4 or 5, and then it lost to Syracuse, it lost to Georgia Tech, it lost games that it shouldn't have, which cost them.
I was high on them at first myself, and I started to back off when they lost some of those close games, especially that controversial overtime thing.
Oh God, yeah. Here's the thing: I think a lot of us, myself included, it wasn't that we fell in love with the U, it's we fell in love with Cam Ward.
Well, sure. But isn't that normally how it works in college football? It starts with a really great quarterback, right?
Or it starts with a really good piece of the offense that you fall in love with.
Right, but when's the last time that's been a running back? It's been a minute.
Oh, absolutely. It was probably the Sony Michel Georgia Bulldogs. Like, because that was really like a ground team.
I don't know that that's the first name I would have gone with, but yeah,
I'm saying that's probably the last one.
Does it fall all the way back to Derrick Henry, even possibly? I don't know.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. Those Alabama teams, like, you loved watching those Alabama teams. I mean, you hated watching those Alabama teams because you knew they were going to probably win the national title.
You hated it. I appreciated greatness, but
no. I appreciated it. I just wasn't a fan of watching them just roll everybody.
Well, wow, that's a separate conversation. I don't know. Fatigue is a thing, and I'll give you this much credit for all the jokes I make about your hate of the Chiefs. At least you're consistent to apply it to the Crimson Tide as well. Well, red teams that win a lot, you weren't about that life because you were sick of it. Okay, at least you're consistent. Just like at least I was consistent talking about conference championship games mattering, robbing Alabama because you fatigued haters kept them out. I'm just saying. I know you're not on the panel, but that's what the panel was thinking.
If SMU doesn't make as big of a comeback in that second half and lose to basically a Hail Mary field goal, I think Alabama rolls into the playoffs. No issues at all.
Yeah, another pun intended, you son of a bitch. Okay. Anyways,
that one was.
Who's mad at it? I'm not. I'm just mad that some of these playoff games are a lot worse than they should have been with some of the way these things turned out. But that's a separate conversation for another week. Mikey, bro, let's pick some NFL games. We got the music going. Why the hell not? Let's go ahead and get off the ground. Thursday night, a division battle. This is going to be significant. I don't know how much playoff life the Chargers still have, but if they want to try to resuscitate it, they will need to host the Denver Broncos and Nick's Bo and Sean Payton. Who you got?
So basically a win by the Chargers clinches them a playoff spot because they will be far enough ahead of Indianapolis, Cincinnati, and Miami. I'm gonna leave in Bo. I'm gonna go with the Denver Broncos to upend the Chargers though this week.
Fair enough. You seem, Patrick, certain that they're going to win that game. I'm kind of with you. I think Bo nixes the Chargers this week, more because their injury state. If they were healthier, I would probably, slide my chips in for Harbaugh as I typically do. The Houston Texans do battle with the Kansas City Chiefs. I know Patrick Mahomes' situation is what it is, but I'll start with this question. Considering it's the Texans, do you start Patrick Mahomes the second this week?
Well, we here's the issue that I have. They technically cannot clinch the 1 seed even with a win this week because Buffalo has the tiebreaker. That being said, I would probably not start Patrick this week. I would probably do exactly what they probably will do, which is throw the smoke screen up, say that he's going to practice, be a full participant, and later in the week announce that Carson Wentz will get the start. If Carson Wentz starts, I think this game will probably be a lot closer than it was. But, when we picked it last night, when Jim got the line, it was Texans -2.5. By the time we picked last night, it was swung to Chiefs -3.5. So
and that's currently what we have as we look at it. According to ESPN Bet, it's 3.5.
Yeah, there's been a 5-point swing in under 28 hours because of the Mahomes injury update. I think Vegas is in on that. I think Carson Wentz plays. But here's the deal. Whether it's Carson Wentz, whether it's you, whether it's me, whether it's Andy Reid, whether it's random guy off the street, CJ Stroud still has to find a way to get the hell away from Chris Jones. Good luck, bud. There it is. Good luck, bud. Give me the Chiefs.
Yeah, moreover, it's funny watching the Texans respond to their starting guard come back because I actually saw a tweet out there by my dude VT of the Catch 22 podcast as a Texans podcast that said, I don't normally cheer for dudes to be hurt. Oh, boy. So if your guard who is coming off of injury is actually not an improvement, he's not going to keep up with the Jones.
Mm-mm.
MVP Chris Jones prevails. I think they keep Patrick Mahomes the second out because of it. Andy Reid is a genius like that, and the Texans will be humiliated, even though they're going to be a playoff team. Maybe the Chiefs don't win, but I'm pretty sure. Well, no, they're giving up points. Screw it. Chiefs win. I don't care. The Ravens and what I believe to be the NFL's best rivalry on Saturday. Why are you doing this on a playoff Saturday too? What the hell, NFL? The Steelers do battle with the Ravens, what I believe to be the NFL's best rivalry at current. Mikey Bern.
I said last night, go home, NFL scheduling, you're drunk.
Yeah.
Because you gave us a really bad Thursday night game, which probably shouldn't have been last week, the injuries to the Niners and a monsoon and all of that. But the 2 Monday night games were both hot garbage.
As Monday night games tend to be.
So, and then you're like, hey, by the way, we're going to put Chiefs, Texans, 2 playoff teams, and Ravens, Steelers, 2 playoff teams, and a game that matters for the division in the middle of the college football playoffs.
Oh, they do that intentionally. They're pulling share. They're not. You've never really seen the NFL do it quite like this before. Is what I'll say.
Correct. That being said, Baltimore will be the pick here. I think they win the division, and I think it's solely because of, and we talked about it last night, Lamar Jackson hasn't played well normally against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and there's one reason behind that, and it's TJ Watt. Well, guess what? He may play in this game, but he still also may be slowed by an ankle injury, giving Lamar Jackson a little bit more time to escape. Yeah. That's where I think Lamar has the game that Lamar needs to have in this to win this game. And it's solely because I think the injury to TJ Watt will just slow him down just enough to give Lamar a few more seconds to get the football out.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. Any other quarterback that may not matter as much. I see now why the Ravens are favored by 6. I would definitely take the Steelers with the points, maybe. Nah, I'm lying. I'd still take the Ravens to cover. And Pickens is still hurt as well. Mm-hmm. Give me the Ravens all day long, 100%. Giants, Falcons. Yeah, okay, the Falcons. I feel good about that. That's it. Yep. By the way, what a great week to start Penix. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Gosh, the Penn is my tier.
Shouts to the Fey Princess of Football, an actual Giants fan that I know, Danielle Orsino. Anyways, the Lions do battle with the Bears. I only bring this game up because Detroit has this many injuries on their defense. Is it enough for the Bears to do something?
No, because we watched them be bad on Thanksgiving against this team and have a shot to win a game and find a way to lose it.
Well, there you go.
It's fascinating that they're 0-8 since the corner started taunting Washington fans on the Hail Mary.
Oh God, I forgot it was that long ago. My God.
Yep. I did bring up that, obviously David Montgomery out for the year as well. The offense loses its real first piece that the offense loses. So, I brought a name up that I thought could be an interesting addition for a playoff run. Former Kansas City Chief Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
I hear where you're going, but I don't think he delivers the same dimension that Knuckles brings. I'll say that.
No, he definitely doesn't. But if Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get more of the carries, you're going to have to find another piece to go with him. And I don't know that there are other real options. I know they talked about bringing in Jerick McKinnon.
That's my thought.
I think he makes sense as well. I think there are going to be some pieces that get brought in to try to fill the David Montgomery void.
Fascinating to watch. Nonetheless, I'm with you. Give me, don't get my kneecaps bitten. The Browns versus Joey Bear and the Bengals. Sorry. Who you got?
If this team could just figure out how to win one-score games, I think Joe Burrow would probably be in the MVP race, but here we are talking about them drafting it like 14 overall. I think the Bengals win this game. I think it's more of because Cleveland is finally waving the white flag on their playoff chances. Shout out Ernest E.J. Christian for that. Benching Jameis Winston and going to DTR. Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, they benched him, so they're going to go to DTR for the last couple weeks. So, yeah, give me the Bengals.
Bengals for me too. Are you really going to pick the Titans against the Colts?
No, because they're benching Will Levis for Mason Rudolph. So no.
Just in time for the holiday season. Mason, the red-nosed quarterback. No, thank you. I do have the Colts. You're not picking the Jets over the Rams. We can move past that. Ooh, okay. The Eagles head over to battle the Washington Commanders. Who you got?
I will take the Philadelphia Eagles to win this football game. I think the defense will be what gives them the edge here. Getting the pressure on Jaden Daniels. I think that's going to be the key here.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Give me the Eagles as well. Also, that defense being great. I think Saquon will do his part, keep the other side off the field. And listen, Jalen, at the end of the day, hurts them by making the big throws on third down, as he tends to do. So, yeah, I'm with you. Give me the Eagles as well. And listen, good to see them turning around, too, despite fighting verbally on the sideline. At least it's verbally this time. Anyways, you got the Cardinals over the Panthers, I'm pretty sure. We'll move past that. The Minnesota Vikings and the Seattle Seahawks. This game's significant for playoff standing. Give me what you think.
Well, it was funny. We talked about it last night. It was the last game that we picked, and, we were like, oh, yeah, Seattle's a tough place to play. It is a tough place to play, especially for the Seattle Seahawks, who can't win at home. I think they're like 1-5 at home this year. It's like the wildest stat I've seen. That team normally finds a way to win games at home. And let's not forget the most important thing. Nobody knows what Geno Smith's knee is going to look like. So right. it's Sam Howell and Zach Charbonnet rather than Geno Smith and Kenneth Walker III. That being said, Sam Darnold is going to find a way to get the Minnesota Vikings another road win and keep them alive for that Week 18 game against Detroit, which could potentially not only be for the division, but for the number 1 overall seed.
Listen, I get it. If you're a Minnesota fan, my skepticism with Sam is getting darn old. That being said, you have to be drunk on wine for me to think that Sam Howell is the answer. Even going back to his days as an ACC quarterback, I remind the world that you can't spell Howell without multiple L's. Give me the Vikings. You liked all that, didn't you, Bern? Nobody gives a damn about the Pats and the Bills. We'll move on.
How many touchdowns does Josh Allen score in that game? I think that's 4. The question. Okay.
4. I think they run the ball more than that with other people.
All right.
Mac Jones versus the Raiders. I'll just hand it to you so I can reference that I picked this game on the Duval Dive. I picked the Raiders in a game that scores less than 40 points overall and the 40.5. So I guess I'm taking the under. Who you got?
You're never going to get me to pick Desmond Ridder, ever.
Yeah, they're at that point, aren't they?
Desmond Ridder was the quarterback on Monday night. He found a way to score a touchdown that they had no reason to score, which ended up blowing my parlay in half. So no, Jacksonville, Mac Jones.
Okay, fair enough. So you got the Jags. You actually have them winning. Listen, BTJ and Cam Little. It happens.
Yep.
The San Francisco 49ers go down to South Beach to battle Mike McDaniel. Both teams struggling mightily. Miami's only giving up 1 point at home. And granted, the correct answer is to look at the injury report and see if Trent Williams is playing before we do anything else. However, with the Dolphins defense, I don't even know if that matters. Bern, what do you think?
I'm going to take the Niners solely on the fact that Tua had the concussion excuse for a while. Is it time to think that maybe Tua just isn't that guy? Maybe it's a quarterback thing there because they have the weapons, and I know that
to end on. I should have seen this sooner. Monday night, Saints, Packers. The correct answer is who loses this game? America.
Who loses this game? Everybody but Ernest DJ Christian, because he'll sit there and tell us that the Packers are still a Super Bowl contender because
he'll put one of his green toes back down. Yeah, he was down to 5. He'll be back up to 6 or 7. I'm not. Let's just say he's made worse takes than the Packers to the Super Bowl. I don't mean to rub anybody's nose in anything brown or, jet them to the coast with that conversation. So with that'll do it for this week's picks. Mikey the Bern you. Thank you for jumping in. Tell the people where you can be found.
You can follow me on Twitter at They Call Me Bern. You can listen to me and Kyle do all the fun stuff over on the Huddle Up stuff, Huddle Up Incorporated. news and notes about that. No live shows the next 2 weeks. Going to be preempted on the live end. There will be content. Jim's working on dates for all of that stuff. Check out the Twitter over there. You can find that over at Huddle Up Inc., or you can go to Jim's Blue Sky and Twitter at Big Jim Sports. His link tree will get you to everything Huddle Up related. Otherwise, that's all I got, man.
Mikey the Bern, Bernier, an honor, joy, and privilege to have you. And of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at the SoTG. Oh yeah, Blue Sky as well. I forgot, I'm one of the cool kids, allegedly. Of course, I am the student of the game on Facebook as well. Check out my writings with the black and gold banneret covering UCF football and basketball. Yes, Scott Frost is hiring coaches all over the place. Crazy stuff. We'll keep you up to date with that. Also, I mentioned basketball. Fans First Sports Network for my coverage of the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Orlando Magic, who now have both their top 2 players out. Good God. And also my coverage of the upcoming bowl games here in Orlando, including the Cure Bowl, the Citrus Bowl, and of course the Pop-Tarts Bowl. That's right, Mikey the Bern Bernier. At one point during that week, I will be within arm's length of the toaster that's being called the trophy.
Let's go.
Sure. A toaster that's being called a trophy. I feel like that's like some dude at a golf course talking about his hot wife or something. Yeah, my toaster's a trophy too. Am I right? Anyways, that's terrible. So yeah, there's that. Fans for Sports Network. And of course, the Duval Dive with my friend, my personal champion, Travis D. Holmes, Big Cat Country. Also the Duval Dive live, which will take place directly after the football game on Sunday. So for Mikey the Bern Bernier, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. Until next time, everyone, class dismissed.